It was a brisk November afternoon in Chicago, the kind where the wind off Lake Michigan cuts through even the thickest coats. The city bustled with its usual rhythm, a symphony of honking taxis, hurried footsteps, and murmured conversations. Amid the chaos, a figure stood out, a man whose presence always seemed to command attention. Former President Donald Trump, flanked by a skeletal security detail, strode down Michigan Avenue. His signature red tie flapped in the wind, and his expression was one of practiced indifference. Few noticed him at first, but those who did whispered in hushed tones, their gazes flickering between curiosity and disdain. Not far from the magnificent miles glittering storefronts, Sarah sat on the cold pavement, her back against a weathered brick wall. Her life had unraveled in ways she still struggled to comprehend. Once a decorated Army medic, she had returned from her final deployment with more scars than medals. The transition to civilian life had been cruel. A series of misfortunes had left her jobless, homeless, and invisible to the world around her. Clutching a cardboard sign that read, "Veteran in Need." Anything helps, Sarah had long since stopped expecting kindness from strangers. As Trump approached, his gaze locked on her. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Sarah looked up, her tired eyes meeting his. There was no recognition in her expression, just guarded skepticism. To her, he was another passerby, perhaps one with an agenda. But Trump, in a rare moment of spontaneity, stopped. His security detail hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension, as though the city itself held its breath. "What's your name?" Trump asked, his voice softer than expected. Sarah hesitated, then answered, her tone cautious. "Sarah." He crouched, his tailored suit brushing the damp sidewalk, and extended a hand. "Sarah, tell me your story." The words were simple, but they carried an unexpected weight. For years, Sarah had been reduced to a statistic, a problem too complex for anyone to solve. Yet here was a man whose name was synonymous with power and controversy, asking her to speak. As she recounted her journey, from the battlefields overseas to the unforgiving streets of Chicago, Trump listened. His expression shifted, the practiced mask of a politician giving way to something more human. Passers-by began to gather, their phones capturing the surreal scene. Some watched with admiration, others with suspicion. Was this genuine compassion, or a calculated move to soften his polarizing image? The question hung in the air, unanswered. What followed was as unexpected as the encounter itself. Trump stood, reached into his coat, and handed Sarah a business card. "Call this number," he said firmly. "We're going to get you back on your feet." The crowd murmured in disbelief. Sarah stared at the card, her fingers trembling. For the first time in months, a flicker of hope ignited within her. But as Trump walked away, flanked once again by his security, the moment left more questions than answers. The encounter rippled through the media like a stone dropped into a still pond. Was this a turning point for a man often accused of lacking empathy? Or was it a fleeting gesture, soon to be forgotten in the relentless churn of headlines? For Sarah, it was neither. It was the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything she believed about herself, about others, and about the strange, unpredictable forces that shape our lives. The story unfolds in a sprawling archipelago known as the Shattered Veil, a world shaped by the aftermath of a celestial cataclysm centuries ago. The islands, suspended in midair by ancient magic, drift through a sky streaked with hues of perpetual twilight. Each island is distinct, ranging from lush jungles teeming with bioluminescent flora to barren wastelands scarred by the remnants of the celestial disaster. The air is thick with charged particles, giving rise to storms of raw energy that can tear apart unprotected ships. The people of the Shattered Vale rely on airships powered by rare crystals mined from the floating islands, and trade routes between communities are both lifelines and battlegrounds. The world is as beautiful as it is dangerous, a place where survival depends on ingenuity and alliances. At the heart of the story is Kale, a disgraced sky pirate captain seeking redemption. Once the leader of a notorious crew, Kale lost everything when he was betrayed by his first mate, leaving him stranded on a desolate island. Hardened by years of isolation, Kale is resourceful and fiercely determined, though haunted by his past failures. His initial motivation is simple: to reclaim his lost airship, the Storm Chaser, and rebuild his reputation. However, his journey takes a turn when he rescues a young stowaway named Lyra from a wrecked vessel. Lyra, a gifted mechanic with a mysterious past, carries a fragment of an ancient map that she claims leads to the Celestial Forge, a mythical artifact said to have the power to reshape the world. Lyra's arrival complicates Kale's plans, as she is being hunted by the Crimson Blades, a ruthless mercenary guild led by Kale's former first mate, Dane. Dane is a cunning and charismatic antagonist who thrives on manipulation and power. He seeks the Celestial Forge not only for its rumored abilities but also to cement his dominance over the Shattered Vale. Dane's betrayal of Kale was calculated, and his pursuit of Lyra is relentless, driven by both ambition and a desire to eliminate anyone who could challenge him. The shared history between Kale and Dane creates a tense dynamic, as Kale must confront his lingering guilt and anger while protecting Lyra. As Kale and Lyra navigate the treacherous skies, they encounter allies and foes alike. Among them is Saran, a former scholar-turned-smuggler, who reluctantly joins their quest after Lyra repairs his damaged airship. Saran's knowledge of ancient lore proves invaluable, though his cynicism often clashes with Kale's growing sense of responsibility. The trio's uneasy alliance is tested as they uncover clues to the forge's location, each revelation drawing them deeper into a web of danger and intrigue. Lyra's motivations remain enigmatic, her guarded demeanor hinting at secrets she has yet to share. The environment itself becomes a character in the story, with its unpredictable storms, hidden ruins, and the ever-present threat of rival factions. The Shattered Vale is a world on the brink of change, its people divided between those who cling to the old ways and those who seek to harness the power of the celestial relics. Against this backdrop, Kale, Lyra, and Saran must navigate not only the physical challenges of their journey but also their own inner conflicts, forging bonds that could determine the fate of the archipelago. On that fateful November afternoon, as Trump listened to Sarah's story, she revealed a shocking truth. She had once worked for a covert government program that unraveled after a scandal buried by powerful elites. Her downfall wasn't random, it was orchestrated. Trump, visibly shaken, vowed to expose the hidden forces behind her plight, igniting a chain of events that would upend everything. The small coastal town of Windhaven was known for its unpredictable tides and the whispers of an ancient shipwreck said to hold untold treasures. For 17-year-old Clara, the shipwreck wasn't just a myth, it was her ticket out of the life she'd always known. Her goal was clear: to find the wreck, uncover its secrets, and use whatever riches it might hold to escape the town that had kept her family trapped in a cycle of debt for generations. Her best friend, Sam, a budding marine biologist with a knack for solving puzzles, was drawn to the mystery for entirely different reasons. For Sam, the shipwreck was a chance to prove himself to his father, a renowned oceanographer who dismissed his son's aspirations as childish dreams. The first obstacle presented itself in the form of the town's reclusive historian, Mr. Aldridge, who held the only known map of the wreck's rumored location. Despite their initial attempts to win his trust, Aldridge was fiercely protective of the map, warning them that the shipwreck was cursed and had claimed the lives of those who sought it. Clara, driven by desperation, suggested sneaking into Aldridge's study to copy the map, while Sam hesitated, torn between his loyalty to Clara and his unease about crossing ethical boundaries. Their disagreement deepened the cracks in their friendship, forcing them to confront the differences in their motivations and values. Meanwhile, Clara's younger brother, Jamie, inadvertently became entangled in their plan. Eager to prove himself useful, Jamie followed them to Aldridge's house one night, only to trigger a silent alarm. The trio barely escaped, but not before Jamie managed to snap a blurry photo of the map using his phone. The image was incomplete, leaving them with only fragments of the shipwreck's location. This failure weighed heavily on Clara, who felt the pressure of her family's financial struggles more acutely than ever. Sam, on the other hand, saw the setback as an opportunity to approach the problem methodically, suggesting they cross-reference the map fragments with historical records in the town library. As they delved deeper into their search, Clara and Sam found themselves growing closer despite their earlier conflict. Their late-night research sessions revealed hidden facets of their personalities, Clara's stubborn determination softened by her vulnerability, and Sam's analytical mind tempered by his growing willingness to take risks. At the same time, Jamie's involvement brought a new dynamic to their group. His youthful enthusiasm and knack for noticing details others overlooked became an unexpected asset, though his impulsiveness often put them in precarious situations. Unbeknownst to them, their activities had not gone unnoticed. A rival treasure hunter, a charismatic yet ruthless diver named Marcus Kane, had caught wind of their interest in the shipwreck. Marcus, who had spent years searching for the same treasure, saw the trio as both a nuisance and a potential lead. He began shadowing their movements, determined to claim the treasure for himself. The looming threat of Marcus added a new layer of urgency to their quest, forcing Clara, Sam, and Jamie to navigate not only the challenges of their search but also the dangers posed by someone who would stop at nothing to achieve his own goals. As the pieces of the puzzle slowly came together, the trio's determination grew, but so did the stakes. Their relationships were tested, their values questioned, and their resolve pushed to the limit. What had begun as a simple quest for treasure was quickly becoming a journey that would change their lives forever. The morning began like any other in the quiet town of Ashbourne. The streets hummed softly with the sounds of early risers, shopkeepers unlocking their doors, and the occasional bark of a dog. For Clara Bennett, it was just another day managing her family's small bookstore. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint aroma of old paper as she stacked a new shipment of novels onto the shelves. Life was predictable, comforting even, until the sharp chime of the bell above the shop's door shattered the monotony. A man, disheveled and wild-eyed, stumbled in, clutching a weathered envelope. He thrust it into Clara's hands without a word, his fingers trembling. Before she could ask who he was or what he wanted, he bolted back out into the street, leaving her stunned and staring at the mysterious envelope. Curiosity warred with apprehension as Clara examined the envelope, its edges frayed and stained. Her name was scrawled across the front in an unfamiliar hand, but there was no return address. Against her better judgment, she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, its message brief but chilling, *, they're watching. Trust no one. Find the key before it's too late. The cryptic note sent a shiver down her spine, and for a moment, she considered dismissing it as a prank. But the urgency in the man's eyes and the weight of his fear lingered in her mind. Something about this wasn't a joke. It felt deliberate, dangerous. Her routine had been disrupted, her safe little world cracked open by this inexplicable event. Before Clara could fully process the note, the shop's front window shattered with a deafening crash. Glass rained down as a brick landed at her feet, wrapped in another piece of paper. Heart pounding, she unfolded it to find a crude drawing of a key and an address scrawled beneath it. Her hands shook as she glanced outside, but the street was empty, eerily so. Whoever had thrown the brick was already gone. The sudden violence jolted her into action. She grabbed her coat and the notes, locking the shop behind her. The address on the paper wasn't far, just a few blocks away, but every step she took felt like a gamble. Clara wasn't sure what she was walking into, but she knew she couldn't ignore it. The urgency of the message and the attack on her store left her no choice. When she arrived at the address, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the sense of foreboding only deepened. The windows were boarded up, and the air smelled of rust and decay. Clara hesitated at the door, her breath visible in the cold air. She thought about turning back, but the image of the man's haunted eyes and the words in the note pushed her forward. She stepped inside, the creak of the door echoing in the cavernous space. The warehouse was dark, save for a faint beam of light filtering through a crack in the roof. As her eyes adjusted, she noticed a small, locked box sitting on a table in the center of the room. Its surface was etched with the same key symbol from the note. Clara's pulse quickened. Whatever was happening, it was far from over. The encounter between Donald Trump and Sarah quickly became the talk of Chicago, igniting debates and speculation across the city. While some praised the former president's unexpected act of kindness, others questioned his motives. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself thrust into a whirlwind of attention she never asked for. Reporters camped out near the shelter where she occasionally stayed, eager to capture her story. For the first time in months, people were listening to her, but the sudden spotlight was overwhelming. She couldn't shake the feeling that her struggles were being turned into a spectacle. Behind the scenes, Trump's team scrambled to address the growing media frenzy. Some advisors urged him to use the moment to bolster his public image, while others warned that his involvement with Sarah could backfire. Trump himself seemed uncharacteristically introspective. He insisted on meeting with local organizations that worked with homeless veterans, claiming he wanted to understand the root causes of the issue. This decision surprised even his closest allies, many of whom had never seen him take such a personal interest in a social cause. As the days passed, Sarah's story began to unfold in greater detail. She had served 2 tours in Afghanistan, earning commendations for her bravery, but her transition back to civilian life had been anything but smooth. A series of misfortunes, an injury that left her unable to work, mounting medical bills, and a lack of family support, had spiraled into homelessness. Despite her circumstances, Sarah remained fiercely independent, reluctant to accept charity or pity. Her resilience struck a chord with many, but it also made her wary of Trump's sudden involvement in her life. Amid the growing tension, a new character entered the scene, Marcus, a community organizer who had been advocating for homeless veterans for over a decade. Marcus was deeply skeptical of Trump's motives and wasn't afraid to voice his concerns. He approached Sarah, offering her a chance to join a grassroots initiative aimed at addressing systemic issues faced by veterans. Sarah, torn between Marcus's offer and Trump's promises, found herself at a crossroads. Both men claimed to want the best for her, but their visions couldn't have been more different. Meanwhile, Trump's actions began to ripple beyond Sarah's immediate situation. Inspired by the encounter, a wealthy philanthropist in New York pledged millions to veteran support programs, while a group of activists in Los Angeles organized a march to demand better housing policies. The encounter had sparked a national conversation, but it also exposed deep divisions. Some saw Trump's involvement as a turning point, proof that even the most polarizing figures could inspire change. Others dismissed it as a calculated move, a distraction from his controversial past. As Sarah grappled with her next steps, she couldn't ignore the growing pressure from all sides. Marcus urged her to use her newfound platform to advocate for broader change, while Trump's team offered her resources to rebuild her life, on the condition that she stay out of the spotlight. The choices before her were daunting, each carrying its own set of risks and rewards. All the while, the November chill deepened, mirroring the uncertainty that loomed over Sarah's future and the broader implications of her unlikely encounter with one of the most polarizing figures in recent history. The encounter between Donald Trump and Sarah quickly became a lightning rod for controversy, igniting debates across the nation. While some lauded his apparent compassion, others dismissed it as a calculated move to rehabilitate his public image. The media frenzy surrounding the event only deepened as more details emerged. Sarah, once an anonymous figure among Chicago's homeless population, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. She found herself both a symbol of resilience and a pawn in a larger political narrative. Behind the scenes, tensions grew within Trump's inner circle. His advisors were divided. Some saw the encounter as a golden opportunity to soften his polarizing reputation, while others feared it would alienate his core supporters. "This isn't what they want to see," one aide argued during a heated meeting. "They want strength, not charity." Trump, however, remained uncharacteristically quiet, his focus seemingly elsewhere. For reasons he hadn't yet shared, Sarah's plight had struck a nerve. Meanwhile, Sarah's life was undergoing a rapid transformation. Journalists clamored for interviews, activists offered their support, and politicians from both sides of the aisle weighed in. Yet, not all the attention was positive. Online trolls began dissecting her past, accusing her of fabricating her story for sympathy. The scrutiny was overwhelming, and Sarah found herself questioning whether accepting Trump's help had been a mistake. Her vulnerability became a subplot of its own, as she struggled to navigate a world that seemed intent on exploiting her pain for its own purposes. As the days passed, Trump's involvement deepened in unexpected ways. He announced plans to launch a new initiative aimed at addressing homelessness among veterans, an issue he claimed had been neglected for too long. The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Critics accused him of using Sarah's story as a political prop, while supporters praised his willingness to tackle a complex issue. Behind closed doors, however, the initiative faced significant hurdles. Funding was scarce, bureaucratic red tape abounded, and Trump's own past policies were called into question. The stakes were rising, and the clock was ticking. Complicating matters further was the emergence of a rival narrative. A former staffer from Trump's administration came forward, alleging that the entire encounter with Sarah had been staged. The claim sent shockwaves through the media, casting doubt on Trump's intentions and threatening to derail the initiative before it even began. Trump vehemently denied the allegations, calling them fake news, but the damage was done. Public trust wavered, and Sarah found herself caught in the crossfire. Amid the chaos, a surprising ally emerged, a local nonprofit leader named Marcus, who had been working with homeless veterans for years. Marcus, initially skeptical of Trump's motives, decided to meet with him after hearing Sarah's story. Their meeting was tense but productive, and Marcus agreed to collaborate on the initiative, on one condition. "This can't just be about optics," he warned. "If you're serious about this, you need to listen to the people who've been in the trenches." Trump, to the astonishment of many, agreed. As the initiative began to take shape, the personal stakes for both Trump and Sarah grew. For Trump, it was a chance to redefine his legacy, but also a risk that could backfire spectacularly. For Sarah, it was an opportunity to reclaim her life, but at the cost of enduring relentless public scrutiny. Their fates were now intertwined, and the path forward was anything but certain. The tension mounted as each decision carried the weight of potential failure, setting the stage for a dramatic confrontation between ideals, politics, and the raw humanity at the heart of it all. As the cold wind swept through the streets of Chicago, the encounter between Donald Trump and Sarah began to ripple beyond the immediate moment. News of the interaction spread quickly, igniting debates across social media and news outlets. Some dismissed it as a calculated move, while others saw it as a rare, humanizing gesture from the former president. However, for Sarah, this was no mere spectacle, it was the beginning of a profound shift in her life. Trump, uncharacteristically quiet during the initial moments, asked Sarah about her story. She hesitated but eventually opened up, recounting her struggles with PTSD from her time in the military, the loss of her family, and the bureaucratic hurdles that had left her without support. As she spoke, Trump's demeanor shifted. The man often seen as brash and unyielding seemed, for a moment, genuinely moved. He promised to help her, not with vague platitudes but with immediate action. And, true to his word, he instructed his team to find her temporary housing that very day. This act, however, was only the beginning. Trump's decision to intervene in Sarah's life set off a chain reaction of events. He announced plans to launch a nationwide initiative aimed at addressing homelessness among veterans, a demographic often overlooked in policy discussions. The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Critics accused him of using Sarah's plight for political gain, while supporters hailed it as a long-overdue acknowledgement of a pressing issue. Regardless of public opinion, the initiative began to take shape, and Sarah became its symbolic face. As Sarah transitioned into stable housing, her own transformation began to unfold. With access to therapy and resources, she started to confront the trauma that had haunted her for years. Slowly, the resilience Trump had seen in her eyes began to manifest in her actions. She reached out to other homeless veterans, offering them support and sharing her story. Sarah's journey from despair to advocacy became a powerful narrative, one that resonated with many and added depth to the initiative's mission. Meanwhile, Trump faced challenges of his own. His decision to champion this cause alienated some of his staunchest allies, who viewed it as a departure from his usual rhetoric. At the same time, it drew unexpected praise from unlikely corners, forcing a reevaluation of his public image. For Trump, this was uncharted territory, balancing his deeply ingrained persona with the vulnerability and empathy required to sustain the initiative. The tension between these facets of his character created a dynamic that would define the next phase of his journey. As the initiative gained momentum, a major turning point loomed on the horizon. A high-profile event was planned to unveil the first phase of the program, with Sarah set to speak alongside Trump. The stakes were high. This was more than a policy launch, it was a test of whether the actions born from that chilly November afternoon could withstand scrutiny and inspire real change. For Sarah, it was an opportunity to reclaim her voice. For Trump, it was a chance to prove that his gesture had been more than a fleeting moment of compassion. The stage was set for a climax that would challenge both characters in ways they had never anticipated. The brisk November air carried with it an unusual tension as the story of Donald Trump's encounter with Sarah began to ripple through the city. The former president's simple declaration, "I'm here to help," had ignited a firestorm of debate. Some hailed it as an act of genuine humanity, while others dismissed it as calculated theater. Yet, for Sarah, the moment was undeniably real. She hadn't expected anyone to stop, let alone someone with Trump's notoriety. His offer of help was a lifeline she hadn't dared to hope for, but it also came with strings she couldn't yet see. Behind the scenes, Trump's team scrambled to manage the fallout. His chief advisor, a shrewd strategist named Evelyn Carter, saw both opportunity and danger in the situation. "We need to control the narrative," she told him sharply. "This could either humanize you or backfire spectacularly. The media is already sharpening their knives." Trump, however, seemed unusually resolute. "This isn't about the media," he replied. "It's about her. She's a veteran, for God's sake. We owe her more than this." Evelyn raised an eyebrow, caught off guard by his uncharacteristic sincerity, but said nothing. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself thrust into an unwelcome spotlight. Journalists descended upon her, prying into her past, her struggles, and her connection to Trump. She quickly became a symbol, though of what, no one could agree. Some saw her as a victim of systemic failure, while others painted her as a pawn in Trump's supposed redemption arc. Sarah, however, resisted being reduced to a narrative. She had her own story, her own battles, and she wasn't about to let anyone, Trump included, define her. As the days passed, Trump made good on his promise. He arranged for Sarah to stay in a modest but comfortable apartment and connected her with resources to help her get back on her feet. Yet, his actions raised more questions than answers. Why her? Why now? And what did he hope to gain? Even Sarah couldn't help but wonder. Why are you doing this? Trump hesitated before answering. Because I can, he said simply. And because I should. But not everyone in Trump's circle supported his newfound altruism. One of his longtime allies, real estate magnate Victor Lang, saw the move as a dangerous distraction. You're wasting your time, Lang sneered during a private meeting. People like her don't vote. They don't matter. Trump's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The tension between the two men was palpable, and it was clear that their alliance was beginning to fracture. Evelyn, ever the pragmatist, watched the exchange with interest. She knew that Lang's influence over Trump had waned in recent years, but this was the first time she'd seen open defiance. As the city buzzed with speculation, a quiet but significant development unfolded. Sarah, emboldened by Trump's support, began to reconnect with her estranged family. Her younger brother, Daniel, had been trying to find her for months, and when he finally did, the reunion was bittersweet. I thought you were gone for good, he said, his voice breaking. Sarah smiled through her tears. So did I, she admitted. Their reconciliation was a small but meaningful victory, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was room for hope. Yet, the stage was far from set for a happy ending. Beneath the surface, forces were at play that neither Trump nor Sarah could fully comprehend. Evelyn had uncovered troubling information about Lang's business dealings, and she suspected that his opposition to Trump's actions was more than ideological. Meanwhile, Sarah's newfound stability was threatened by a shadow from her past, a debt she thought she'd escaped but that now loomed larger than ever. As the pieces moved into place, it became clear that this was only the beginning of a much larger story. The days following Donald Trump's encounter with Sarah were a whirlwind of media coverage, public speculation, and political intrigue. While some heralded his actions as a rare moment of humanity, others questioned his motives. Was this a genuine act of compassion or a calculated move to reshape his legacy? The skepticism was not unfounded, given his polarizing past, but for Sarah, the encounter was life-changing. She had been thrust into the spotlight, her struggles now a symbol of a larger issue, the systemic neglect of veterans and the homeless. Yet, the attention came with its own challenges, threatening to overwhelm her fragile sense of stability. As Trump delved deeper into Sarah's story, he uncovered layers of systemic failures that extended far beyond her personal circumstances. Her struggles were emblematic of countless others, veterans who had served their country only to be abandoned upon their return. Trump's team began to investigate, unearthing bureaucratic red tape, underfunded programs, and a lack of cohesive support for those in need. But his decision to act ignited fierce opposition. Critics accused him of hypocrisy, pointing to policies during his administration that had been criticized for exacerbating inequality. Allies warned him that his involvement could alienate his base, many of whom viewed such issues through a lens of personal responsibility rather than systemic reform. Meanwhile, Sarah faced her own battles. The sudden influx of attention brought opportunities but also scrutiny. Journalists dug into her past, questioning her decisions and credibility. Social media erupted in debates about whether she deserved the help she was receiving. The pressure mounted as Sarah struggled to navigate this new reality, her resilience tested in ways she hadn't anticipated. Yet, through it all, she remained determined to use her platform to advocate for others like her. Her growing voice became a beacon for those who had been silenced by circumstance, but it also made her a target for detractors. As the narrative unfolded, Trump faced a critical decision. His efforts to assist Sarah had begun to transform into a broader initiative aimed at addressing homelessness and veteran support. However, the initiative required bipartisan cooperation, and the political climate was anything but collaborative. Key players in Washington saw his efforts as an opportunity to score points, either by supporting or opposing him. The tension reached a boiling point when a high-stakes meeting with lawmakers ended in a heated argument, leaving Trump at a crossroads. Would he double down, risking his reputation and political capital, or step back, leaving Sarah and others like her to fend for themselves? The stakes were further heightened by a personal revelation. During one of their conversations, Sarah shared a story about a fellow veteran who had taken his own life after years of struggling with PTSD and homelessness. The story struck a chord with Trump, reminding him of his late brother Fred's battle with alcoholism and how the family's failure to intervene had haunted him. This connection deepened his resolve, but it also exposed a vulnerability that his opponents were quick to exploit. They painted his efforts as a desperate attempt to atone for past mistakes, casting doubt on his sincerity. As the pieces of the story moved toward convergence, the final challenge loomed, a public forum where Trump and Sarah would address the nation together. The event was fraught with tension, as protesters gathered outside, and pundits speculated on how it would unfold. For Sarah, it was a chance to speak her truth, to shed light on the struggles of those who had been forgotten. For Trump, it was an opportunity to redefine his legacy, to prove that even the most divisive figures could act with compassion and purpose. But the question remained, would their actions spark meaningful change, or would they be dismissed as a fleeting moment in an era defined by division? The answer awaited in the climax, where all threads would finally intertwine. It was a turning point no one could have predicted. As Donald Trump and Sarah sat down in a small cafe he had arranged for them to visit, the conversation between them revealed the deeper struggles of a society grappling with inequality. Sarah spoke of her time in the military, her sacrifices, and the systemic failures that left her without support when she needed it most. Trump, known for his polarizing rhetoric, listened intently, a rare moment of vulnerability that caught even his closest aides off guard. For the first time in years, it seemed he wasn't speaking to score political points but to understand. The encounter sparked a chain of events that would ripple far beyond that chilly afternoon in Chicago. Trump announced a new initiative, the Second Chance program, aimed at addressing homelessness among veterans. Critics were quick to dismiss it as a publicity stunt, but Trump doubled down, allocating personal funds to kickstart the project and enlisting bipartisan support. Sarah became the face of the movement, her story broadcast nationwide as a testament to resilience and the need for systemic change. For her, the program wasn't just a lifeline, it was a chance to rebuild. She found housing, reconnected with her estranged family, and began advocating for others like her, proving that one act of compassion could indeed change lives. However, the initiative wasn't without its challenges. Trump faced fierce opposition from both sides of the aisle, with detractors accusing him of using Sarah's story to whitewash his controversial past. Protests erupted, and media outlets dissected every move he made. Yet, amidst the chaos, Sarah's voice emerged as a powerful counterpoint. "I don't care who he was before," she said in a televised interview. "What matters is what he's doing now." people like me don't have the luxury of waiting for someone perfect to help us." Her words struck a chord, silencing many critics and reframing the narrative. It wasn't about Trump's past, it was about the future he was trying to shape. As the months passed, the program expanded, providing not just housing but also mental health services, job training, and community support for thousands of veterans. Sarah, now a key advisor to the initiative, worked tirelessly to ensure its success. For Trump, the experience marked a shift in his post-presidential life. While he remained a polarizing figure, this endeavor showcased a different side of him, one that many had doubted existed. The initiative became a rare example of unity in a deeply divided nation, proving that even the most unlikely individuals could come together for a common cause. The story of Trump and Sarah is a reminder of the power of action over words. It challenges us to look beyond preconceived notions and ask ourselves what we can do to make a difference. If a single encounter can spark such profound change, imagine what could happen if we all took the time to listen and act. Let Sarah's journey inspire you to take that first step, whether it's helping a neighbor in need, volunteering your time, or advocating for those without a voice. Change begins with compassion, and it begins with us. As the weeks unfolded after that chilly November afternoon, Sarah's life took a dramatic turn. True to his word, Trump arranged for Sarah to receive immediate assistance. She was connected with a local shelter that specialized in helping homeless veterans transition back into stable lives. But Trump didn't stop there. He used his influence to rally support from business leaders, philanthropists, and veteran organizations to address the systemic issues that had left so many like Sarah behind. His actions sparked a national conversation about homelessness, particularly among veterans, and the responsibility of society to care for those who had served. For Sarah, this was the beginning of a new chapter. With access to counseling, job training, and temporary housing, she began to rebuild her life. Her resilience, which Trump had noticed in their brief encounter, shone through as she secured a job at a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping other veterans. She became a symbol of hope, proof that even in the darkest moments, a spark of compassion could ignite change. Sarah's story was shared widely, inspiring others to take action in their own communities. Yet, the public's reaction to Trump's involvement remained divided. Some praised his efforts, seeing them as a genuine attempt to make amends for past controversies and to use his platform for good. Others remained skeptical, questioning his motives and pointing to his previous policies that had drawn criticism for their perceived lack of empathy. Trump, however, seemed unbothered by the speculation. In a rare moment of introspection during an interview, he remarked, "People can say what they want. What matters is what we do for others." Sarah reminded me of that. The encounter with Sarah marked a subtle but noticeable shift in Trump's public persona. While he remained polarizing in many ways, he began to advocate more openly for veteran support programs and initiatives aimed at addressing homelessness. Critics and supporters alike noted that his actions, whether driven by genuine compassion or a desire to reshape his legacy, had tangible positive effects. For Sarah and countless others, the results were undeniable. As the months turned into years, Sarah continued to thrive, becoming a vocal advocate for veterans' rights and mental health awareness. Her story served as a reminder that even the most unexpected encounters could lead to profound change. Trump, meanwhile, remained a complex figure, a man whose actions on that November afternoon had sparked both hope and controversy. His legacy would forever be debated, but for Sarah, he had been the catalyst for a second chance at life. This story challenges us to look beyond our assumptions about others and to recognize the potential for change and redemption in everyone. It reminds us that small acts of kindness can ripple outward, transforming lives in ways we may never fully understand. Let Sarah's journey inspire you to take action in your own community. Whether it's supporting a local shelter, advocating for veterans, or simply extending a hand to someone in need, you have the power to make a difference. Sometimes, it only takes one moment of compassion to change everything.